Welcome everybody to Strategic Management and to Module 2. This video represents a short overview to Module 2. So let's have a quick review of our strategic management model. The model is, as we've seen, made up of three different areas. We start off with strategic position, and strategic position is all about strategic analysis. Later we will be going on to strategic choice, which is where we look at the different decisions made for future strategy. And latterly we're going to be looking at strategy in action, which is really all to do with implementation of those strategic decisions. Now, we are looking today in Module 2 at strategic position still. But whereas in Module 1 we looked at industry, macro and stakeholder effects on organisations, i.e. those external influences, Module 2 focuses more on those internal aspects of strategy analysis, resources and organisational culture. Now, as a quick reminder, strategic position. So strategic position is concerned with the impact on strategy of the external environment, what we were looking at in Module 1, and an organisation's strategic capability and the expectations and influence of stakeholders. Now, in this module, Module 2, we are specifically concerned with this, an organisation's strategic capability. Indeed, we are going inside the organisation now because we're going to be looking at strategy and internal analysis. Remember, Module 1 introduced you to some of the basics of strategy, and we presented a number of tools, frameworks and methods so that you could evaluate the external environment. We are now going to be turning our attention to understanding the internal environment so that we can come up with some idea of what the organisation's strengths and weaknesses are. Now, Module 2 still focuses on strategic position, but in fact we are going inside the organisation and we're going to be focusing our attention on resources and capabilities and organisational culture. So we're going to be looking at strategic resources and capabilities in Module 2, and we're going to introduce you to the theory called the resource-based view. So the resource-based theory, and this theory looks at competitive advantage and superior performance of an organisation as explained by the distinctiveness of its particular capabilities. In other words, what it can do. But we're going to be concerned with looking at and analysing, well, what an organisation can do and what it does well and how it can become better at what it does. So we're going to be talking about particular resources and capabilities, those which are distinctive, i.e. those that are likely to provide some form of uniqueness and therefore competitive advantage for the organisation. We're going to look at a framework that we use for analysing resources and capabilities within organisations. This framework is referred to by the acronym VRIO or VRIO framework, and V stands for value, R stands for rarity or rareness, I stands for inimitability, i.e. that which cannot be imitated, and O stands for organisational exploitability. So can the organisation actually exploit what it may be able to do well? Okay, so we're looking inside the organisation and we're looking inside to find out how can the organisation maybe become better at what it does. So we're really basically looking at competitive advantage from an internal perspective. Now, what do we mean by competitive advantage again? Well, we know it's a combination of characteristics of the firm's offer. So what it's offering to its stakeholders, its value proposition. And to gain some form of advantage, it has to be able to offer value which is superior to that value that the competitors are offering. Now, to analyse value, there are a number of different concepts that we can introduce here, ways of analysing how to achieve that competitive advantage. So we start off by decomposing the organisation's value offering, and we look at this in terms of the different activities that the organisation performs and the different interplay of costs of performing those different activities. Now, what we're seeking to achieve to be able to accrue some form of competitive advantage is to not only be cost effective in what we are doing, but also achieving added value. Now, these are the two key areas where organisations are competing against each other currently. So looking at ways of being cost effective, but at the same time of increasing value offerings to customers in particular. Okay, so from value decomposition, we're going to be looking at the value chain. Now, the value chain categorises the different activities within organisations into primary activities, those activities that are responsible for generating raw materials, transforming those raw materials into particular goods, etc. So the manufacturing capabilities. Then we're looking at also distribution, marketing, etc. All of these activities are construed as primary activities. So what is the organisation doing maybe particularly well in those primary activities? Where maybe it's struggling in those activities? Keep in mind that when we're looking at these value chain activities, we're thinking of costs and where the organisation is adding value. Okay. Value chain also has secondary activities or support activities. So such things here would include, for example, the purchasing department and the capabilities therein. Also, we're looking at human resource management, the human resource department. So recruitment policies, promotion policies, reward policies, etc. are important here. Also, the governance of the organisation, its structure. The power structures within the organisation are important, and everything, the primary activities and support activities, must be working in harmony for the organisation to be performing well and for the organisation to achieve some form of competitive advantage. So value chain is simply a way of assessing, again, what the organisation does and what it can do well. Value shop as a concept for looking at organisations, but much more from the point of view or the perspective of service organisations. And here we're looking at how organisations are designed to solve customer or client problems, rather than looking at value as a function of producing output from input of raw materials. Okay. And finally, we're going to introduce you to the concept of the value network. So again, how can a firm achieve some form of competitive advantage through its partnerships? So those partnerships or collaborative work with the network of organisations in the organisation's what we call value network. Okay, so moving on then, also as part of an organisation's internal analysis, we need to accept and analyse the role of organisational culture and the organisation's history. Culture and history are very much intertwined, okay? They are actually the stimulus for many organisational behaviours that we find within organisations. So we're going to start by looking at corporate culture, what it is, why it's necessary, because it is a positive. It can be both negative and positive, as we will see, but it can be positive because it is a means of helping simplify information processing for employees. Okay? How we are expected to behave within organisations, what behaviour is rewarded, what behaviour is punished, for example. So it also acts as a form of complementary control for the organisation. It also facilitates collaboration and cooperation, and it can attract potential employees and drive employee engagement. This is something you might want to consider when you're looking for your stage or your future careers. Think about the organisation's culture. Is it a culture that engages you? Is this organisation displaying a culture that you might feel happy working within, for example? We're going to find out a little bit more about all of this in Module 2. We talked about history and how culture and history are linked, so we need to look back at the organisation's culture because this history of the organisation gives us an idea of why we make the decisions that we do make. Yeah? Why is it perhaps that we've always chosen diversification as a route to growth? It could be because this decision was very much rationally based, but it could also be due to the fact that, well, actually, we don't want to change things. We don't want to look at new ways of growing, perhaps through innovation, because, well, we've done this in the past. It always works, so let's stick with it. Okay? So history can create what we call a form of path dependency. So our future strategies are based simply on our past strategies. That could be positive, but sometimes for organisation, it isn't. We need to change with the changing environment. And so some organisations that are not attuned to assessing the culture and the role of the culture and history on their strategies might stick to strategies that take them off course. This is what we call strategic drift. And we want to be able to assess whether this is happening to our organisation, and if it is, we need to be able to remedy this strategic drift as soon as possible. We're also going to be looking at the role of benchmarking, and benchmarking is a tool that we can use to analyse what we do internally within the organisation compared to what our competitors are doing. We can base our benchmarking on competitors. Maybe we look at our best performing competitor, those competitors that are closest to us in terms of the markets that they are serving. But we can also use benchmarking in terms of our past history and our past performance. So again, history has a significant story to tell us, and whether or not our history is appropriate for where we want to be in the future. And we're going to be introducing you to a framework that helps us analyse organisational culture. And this framework is called the Cultural Web, and very much documented in your core text. It's by Johnson and Scholes, two of the authors of the core text, and they come up with 6 areas that firms can look at to help them analyse the culture of the organisation. Now, once the culture has been evaluated, it might be that the organisation is quite happy with their current culture. If not, it might be necessary that the organisation attempts to moderate or modify certain of these elements. And it could be looking at, well, for example, do we have the right organisational structures in place? Maybe the structures are preventing us from moving away from our history, because our history is no longer valid for where we want to be in the future. Are we sending out the right symbols? Are we rewarding the right things within the organisation? Are we using the right control systems for where we want to be in the future, etc. So more to come on that in this module. What I want to talk about next is the resources that we've provided for you, tailor-made for the course and for you. And Module 2, similar to Module 1, provides a range of different videos that we would expect you to take the time to go through. As we've said, watching the videos should take around one hour and a half. We've also produced a set of PowerPoint slides to accompany these videos, and on these slides we have exercises, mini videos, etc., and we point you to the required reading and sometimes supplementary reading for the module. We also include the case study that you are expected to be looking at for the case workshops of Module 2. Okay, so check out the resources for that. So we have got a number of videos, as you see here. Video 4, Strategic Resources and Capabilities. Video 5, Value Analysis. Video 6, History and Culture. And Video 7, Analysing Corporate Culture. Okay. Again here, where do you find all this information, all these resources that we've put up on Blackboard for you? Well, once you go into the Strategic Management site, now you need to be clicking on elements of Module 2 here. You get the module summary here, and then you click on the different areas of the Blackboard site, and you can access all of those resources that we've placed there for you. Now, assessment, so Module 2 assessment, we're going to be assessing you in 3 ways, similar to Assessment 1, but we have an extra assessment here which is going to be graded, so keep your eyes open. Now, so Assessment 1, again, you are expected to contribute your questions to the database for our MCQ quiz for Module 2. So the same procedure as Module 1. Your questions must be based on the videos you watch, any readings you do, or any class discussions about any of the concepts that we are covering in Module 2. Don't forget, as well as uploading your own question, we expect you to give feedback on questions that your colleagues author. And again, we'll be monitoring all of this activity, and you get to earn badges for your use or your participation in our POI's platform. Okay? Now remember, this activity or your participation in POIs and these question development is going to be assessed, and it will be part of your participation and contributes will be accumulated to contribute to 10% of the course assessment. So assessment 2, this is the actual quiz itself. So a 20-question MCQ quiz. Remember, 10 of the questions we're going to be using from those that you've developed, those that you've uploaded to POIs, and then we're going to be supplementing that with around 10 of our own questions. Okay. Now, this part of the assessment, this MCQ is graded, and it represents 10% of the final overall weighting for the course. Okay, so assessment 3, slightly different to module 1 here. We've got a particular project deliverable for you here. Remember, in your coaching sessions, we're going to be talking about your group project. We're going to be helping you complete your group project. And we've got certain milestones we expect you to achieve. Now, for coaching session 2, we've got a milestone. We want you to be able to present for 15 minutes to the class where you've got to so far. Particularly, we want you to provide an overview to your particular group's topic and the progress that you have made as a group since the first presentation. Okay, the presentation in coaching session 1. Now, so we need you also to present the key strategic analyses that you are going to be using in your group project. And we need you to explain why you've chosen these particular analyses and why they are particularly appropriate for your project. This is entirely down to you. Okay, we don't expect you to use all strategic analysis. We expect you to choose those that you deem appropriate for helping you complete your group project. Okay, now then, that's what you have to do. That's the deliverable that we require for coaching session 2. Now, we're going to ask you to do a little bit more, however, in session 2. We're going to give you an exercise, and this is what we call an exercise in peer feedback. And this exercise is going to be graded, and it's going to be worth 10% of the module marks. So, briefly, what are you expected to do? So, each individual from any project team will be asked to provide written feedback to each team that presents. So we imagine that one team is presenting. We have another team then that are going to be assigned to give feedback on the presentation. Okay, now the feedback team will be nominated as also the presentation scheme at the beginning of coaching session 2. Now, so the presentation team will receive written feedback from each member of the feedback team. Now, we've developed a template for you in our assessment package. These templates can be found under the resources section for this module, so take a look at that. So you're going to be providing this written feedback on our template. Okay. Now you give your individual feedback back to the presenting team. Now the presenting team then collectively, i.e. as a group, gives assessment on the quality of the feedback that you, as an individual, have provided for the presenting team's presentation. Okay, so it's in fact your peers, the presenting team, that are going to be assessing you for this particular exercise. Now, your professor has a role in this too, because they will have a global overview of the feedback provided and a global view of how that feedback has been assessed by the presenting team. Okay, and once the exercise is completed, the professor will give the individuals a grade for the feedback that they have been that they gave to the presenting team. Okay, more information on that exercise can be found in the information booklet, the course assessment booklet. If you've got any doubts, of course, please don't hesitate to ask your professor as well. We will be giving you a bit of an overview to this prior to coaching session 2 as well, so don't get too worried about it at the moment. Now then, that's the end of our short video for module 2. So once again, we hope you continue to enjoy your journey through the strategic management course, and particularly this module 2. If you have any questions, first port of call, go to your professor and ask them. For wider course related questions, please email me directly. You have my email here. Okay, so all the very best, and we look forward to seeing you again soon in class.